Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Patrick Connection, where I connect with Hoosier veterans who are doing some great things here in Indiana. And also, we learned about their transition story. That being said, I have a fantastic person for you. This gentleman has been around in the recruitment circles for quite some time. He's a true advocate, for our state as far as bringing talent here and keeping talent here. And so I'm going to go ahead and welcome him to the stage. Therron Thomas, he is the Crane Army recruiter, but I think before he was Navy recruiter too. So he had a dual hat with that. But Therron, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And we are glad to have you. So tell us about yourself and kind of what you do.
Okay. Well, currently, my name is Therron Thomas, as you've already introduced me. I'm a Hoosier native. Grew up in Clear Creek, Indiana, just south of Bloomington, Indiana, and it was going to be an artist. That was my dream in life, was to be an artist. And short story is, I went to Indiana University, spoke to a professor who then told me if I wanted to be a commercial artist, I needed to learn some German or Japanese before I started, because those countries were leading that industry. And what he didn't know is I was so poor I couldn't go to school for a year, let alone like 8, and still not have a PhD. So I went off and joined the Army National Guard of Indiana. Went to basic training in AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, as a cannon fire direction specialist in 1984. And as it turned out, I learned I was a pretty good soldier. In fact, I might have been a better soldier than I was an artist, honestly, looking back at it. But I done really well. I graduated top of my class. I came back as a traditional National Guardsman, as most people do. And it just happens around that time frame, there was a fairly new program called the Active Guard Reserve Program, AGR. And there were some full-time soldiers, active duty soldiers in guard units, helping them with their day-to-day things. And I volunteered at the Armory for a little while and got to know my cannon fire direction officer and my FDO, the fire direction chief, some other people. And the next thing I know, they invited me to interview for a full-time position for an AGR job as an armorer, of all things. And interesting story there, Chaz. I'll tell you, this is a great story about how sometimes not knowing something is the best thing that happened to you. We went in, we did a physical fitness test, an interview, a typing test, several things that we had to do to get this job. And one of the things they had us do was to go into a room with the armorer, the current armorer, who was going to give us a little test. And it became my time. I was lined up with several other people. I walked into the room and I saw laying in front of the armorer an M60 machine gun. And I got to tell you, going back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, the day we were supposed to fire and familiarize with the M60, there was a lightning storm. They wouldn't let us touch it. We went to the range. We watched it fired for about 5 minutes, and we left. And they signed off on us. And I hadn't touched one since. I hadn't even seen one, honestly. And I was like, oh, man, there's no way I'm going to stop, And as I'm walking the 14 or 15 feet between the door and this Sergeant Huffman was his name, Mike Huffman. He's a great Hoosier veteran advocate too. He said, Specialist Thomas, you have an M60 here with a malfunction. You need to tell me what's wrong with it and what the remedial actions would be, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was walking up, I remembered Sergeant Garcia, one of my drill sergeants, numerous times during my training saying, don't ever touch anything unless you touch the manual first, son, type thing. And as I was walking up, I glanced and there was a TM laying on the side of the table. And I thought, well, nothing else, I know how to read, So I walk up, Roger, Sergeant, got it. I reached down, picked up the manual, and he said, stop. And I said, oh, okay. Everything okay? He said, no, you're good. He said, go ahead and lay the manual down. You're good. Take off. Okay. I walked out. 2 days later, I got a call and I got the job. And I started coming into active duty. And after I got completely on board and I was working there at the Armory, I asked about that. They said, of 17 people, I was the only one to pick up that manual before I touched a weapon. And I was like, well, thank goodness for ignorance, right? Sometimes. And that stuck with me throughout my career. 30 years in the AGR system, the Indiana Guard. Had a deployment to Iraq in 2006. Took 152 soldiers over and taught Iraqi police officers, and that's a lengthy story also. But had a great deployment. We lost one soldier to a sniper. And at the end of my career, I was kind of known as like a very rules and regulation type guy, right? And part of that was because of that. I thought, man, if anything, the thing that really gave me my livelihood and an active duty tour for 30 years was the fact that that sergeant had told me don't do things unless you look at the book first, right? So, I wouldn't say that there's never an opportunity to not do that, but at the end of the day, there's been a lot of soldiers in the past write those regs and stuff, right? So that kind of shaped my entire career. For 30 years, retired in 2014, and was looking for a federal job. And I had tried and tried and tried. And I know a lot of your veterans do the same thing, right? I'll just be honest. I think the military pumps us full of a lot of energy of how people are just going to throw jobs at us right when we get out, whether we're an infantryman or whether we're a medic or whatever. That's what they tell you. Yep. And the fact of the matter is, employers love veterans. There's nothing. I'm not trying to play that down. What I'm trying to explain is that when you get out, you have to be able to sell yourself, right? So here I am, a 30-year sergeant major, and I'll tell you, during my AGR career, because AGR people and soldiers have to do all those jobs that a normal active duty unit would do with 20, 30 other people, right? You are the safety NCO, you're the fire extinguisher inspector, all these things, right? So I found that my resume was very lengthy, and it covered all those things. I had been an armor, a supply sergeant, a PS NCO, retention NCO, recruiter. I was a master gunner. I was an assistant ops. I was the operations sergeant, a first sergeant. It just went on and on and on. And the thing that got me, and I tell you, one of the things I talk to veterans about even today is this. You have to choose what you're going after, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to get a job, you're seeking a job, right? You can't sell yourself. It's like trying to sell a donut on a street corner, right? Like somebody's going to want it, but if they're not, you might want to try to find out where people want donuts at, right? And go sell it. So that's what I learned is to do a skills inventory. And I learned that during the transition assistance program as I came out of the military, and I took it to heart. And what I did was I made 3 resumes. I thought that I might want a job in HR because I was pretty good at it, and held a lot of titles there. I'd like to small arms repair again. I love working on weapons and stuff. So that was something I had some talent in. And then, I thought logistics. I spent several years as a supplyman, right? Working the S4 section and things like that. So what I did was I got an Excel spreadsheet, and I listed my jobs across the top: logistics, HR, weapons repair. And I went down the side and I started going through my resume and writing down keywords and proficiencies and skills and abilities and things down the side of that spreadsheet. And I scored them 1 to 10. And I can tell you right now that what it revealed to me is that, being able to repair a 50 caliber machine gun has nothing to do with HR, right? And nobody in HR cares about that. So what that let me do was to create 3 resumes. And I'll tell you, after I did that, the first time I submitted a resume, I got an interview. It was the first interview I'd had besides, actually, I went to work as a contractor for Recruiting Command in Indiana National Guard for about 6 months. And that was because I knew the guy, and I'd been doing that type of work anyway. So they're like, hey, if you want to become a contractor, we'd love to have you, right? It was easy. That job at Crane that I do now was not so much easy. And I tell you, I hadn't got even a single hit until I did that, until I refined that resume and tried to sell myself to the right people with the right talents, right? And that may sound like an easy task because I'm talking about a 30-year career where I had those talents, right? If you've been an infantryman for 4 years, maybe you won't be able to refine it that much. I don't know, you know what I mean? But that's one of the first things I did was started targeting and trying to figure out what job I wanted and making sure that my resume reflected that, as opposed to just hoping that someone liked me who I was, right?
Right.
So yeah, anyway, so I went to work at Crane, 2014, labor and employee relations, which I'll tell you honestly, I didn't like at all. That job is terrible, man. The right people absolutely love it, but all I was dealing with was problems, and not necessarily even problem employees, but problem managers who weren't disciplining employees, just all those things. And it was not my cup of tea. I felt I was pretty good at it, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do, right? And a couple of things happened, and I'll just I'll kind of end with this because I know we probably want to talk a little bit about Crane and what I do there, but we received direct hire authority, which means that if all you veterans looking on USA Jobs and throwing your resumes at it, and not getting any responses, the government knows that's a slow way of doing things. They still do it, trying other methods. One of the ones is giving direct hire authority specifically for very vital organizations like Crane, Indiana. because we can't honestly wait 6, 8, 10 months to get the right person in boots, right? Along with that, I had a risk taker, another veteran. Jim Harden was our HR director at the time, and he kind of um, he did. He created one of the very first Navy recruiting branches in the civilian or and civil service in the entire Department of Defense. Honestly, it was kind of leaning forward and putting his neck out. Um, and what we decided was we were going to recruit kind of like the military does, right? We're going to go find people. We're going to hit hunt. We're going to get those people and pull them in. So he took it out of hide and created this branch, and we started hitting every job fair we could and doing social media tasks and headhunting and all the things you do as a recruiter. And we've been incredibly successful with doing that. And that's what landed me with the Army, was because of what we've been doing with the Navy, because they've recently been given direct hire authority also. So if we go out and find the right veteran or the right non-veteran, for that matter, who has the right skill sets, we've been given the authority to say, "Hey, would you like a job?" and do that outside. There is no waiting all that time and all these things, right? So that's kind of where I'm at now. How I grew up, probably much more lengthy than what you were expecting me to tell you, but that's me in a nutshell. That's where I am and where I came from.
So I guess one of the things I really kind of I pull out from your journey is understanding your transferable skills, right?
Yep.
Identifying that to the position that you're vying for,
Yep,
as well, and then networking.
absolutely.
Networking.
Oh man, you ain't kidding, right? Yeah, yeah. I tell you, latch on to anybody who can help you in any way, whether that's helping you refine your resume or somebody who knows somebody else, somebody who's hiring in vets. I mean, any way you can reach out and get attached to somebody. Uh, I tell people all the time, Chaz, here's one of the things that you might find this interesting. Talk about infantry guys, right? And I keep picking on that because a lot of people are like, well, infantry, what are you going to do? You like shoot people, right? I mean, like it is security jobs, right? I mean, that's kind of where it transfers over to is security, police, those types of things, right? But there's thousands of infantry guys. So I always say, when I even talk to engineers at schools, I'm like, tell me about you. Well, I'm an engineer, no, stop. No, that's not what I hear. Look behind me here. See these right here? I'm a sergeant major in the Army. Nobody would ever believe that I dress up as Star Wars characters and cosplay them at events and stuff, right?
That's cool.
When I tell people that, right, they're like, "Oh wow, I had no idea." It's like, "Yeah, I look like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've got great pictures of me with lightsabers and stuff, right?" And nobody would ever know that. But sure, I'm a sergeant major. That's not very repeatable. There's 100 of us out there, right? But I put that on my resume. Cosplay as Obi-Wan Kenobi and whatever, right? And so we're like, oh my God, you wouldn't want to do that. But I'm telling you right now, networking. You're talking about networking. Anything you can do to get somebody to repeat your name, do it. If that means talking to Chaz and saying, hey, by the way, I'm also, the number one player of, chess in the, state of Indiana, or, started the first Dungeons and Dragons club at my university, or whatever it might be. Because at the end of the day, you probably look just like every other infantry guy that came out, just like mechanical engineers look just like every other mechanical engineer coming out of school. They use the same textbooks, they get the same teachers, the same project, right? So what makes you unique? And I would say, in addition to networking, make sure that it's not like, hey, I got another infantry guy, I got another combat engineer, I got another medic, right? It's, hey, I met a infantryman who's getting his degree in this, and oh, by the way, he runs an Etsy shop and sells wood carvings of whatever, right? That makes you repeat that name and everybody you network with. Because at the end of the day, you are selling yourself to try to get that job and trying to focus and get the job that you want. And if you're just, hopefully somebody will get me. No, man. You're not the fish under the bridge. You need to be the fish out there swarming around the bobber, right? And tugging on it is the way you're going to get caught. And it's the same thing with job hunts, man. Networking. Make your name repeatable. Make sure you focus on the skills that are going to get you a job. And if that's you're a combat engineer and you know how to blow things up, I want to talk to you. That's what we do at Crane, right? We make a lot of explosives and stuff. Probably not real interested in that necessarily in a factory, except don't focus on the explosives. Focus on all the safety aspects, right? And all the things you had to do. And again, it's just that refinement of the resume and making sure that those skills are the ones that employer is looking for. That you're trying to get that job as opposed to selling yourself.
Well, I've got a question. So, because I know you go to in-person events.
Yeah.
and virtual events. What are some like strategies could somebody really use with the virtual? Like, I guess, what's some best practices with the in person, and what's the best practice you could recommend with virtual? Because I know each area kind of, you got to do things a certain way.
You do, and I'll tell you the biggest difference, in my opinion, is that if you're going to do something virtual, then you better be active at it, right? I've done so many virtual fairs where people will pop in a room, they'll pop right back out, they'll pop back out of the room later, and I think they're maybe waiting on me to say, "Hey, welcome to the room," right? It's like, dude, this isn't a job fair, man. If I'm at a job fair, I'm telling you right now, Chaz, you've probably seen me at some. If I'm standing talking to people, that's I'm doing my job. If I'm not talking to people, I'm not at my booth. I'm going 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, whichever. I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm grabbing people. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather be talking to a guy that's, I don't know, has driven a trash truck his entire life, even though I'm hiring engineers. Because if I'm talking to somebody else is going to stop and wonder why I'm talking to, what are they interested in, right? So as a candidate, I would say the most important thing is going back to networking, man. You do your homework up front. Go find those booths that you want to talk to and talk to them. Don't waste time if there's a giant line, because they're going to stick around. Go try to find something else, come back to them. But the virtual world, don't bounce around the lobby and go, they probably don't want to talk to me. Because here's the bottom line. Let's say you're not an engineer. I keep going back to this example because I've dealt a lot of it. But let's say you go into a room and it's STEM, right? And I'll look for engineers. You're not an engineer. If you want to work for that company and you know that they hire security people and you're an infantryman, again, going back to this example, right? Dude, don't just walk out. Say, hey, you know what? I'm a trained whatever, blah, 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 blah. I'd love to know more about your security. I understand this is not the fair for me, but I'd love for you to let me know if I can talk to somebody, right? Again, it's going after people, because those virtual fairs, man, it's as stagnant as you get. If you're not like we are right now, the person talking, or you're not chatting with somebody in the chat room, there's no visibility, man. I don't even know you're there. I mean, I really don't. You're in and out. Otherwise, at a physical job fair, man, make yourself present. Dress properly, be ready to go find those people, do a little bit of work in advance, and go talk to those people you want, and then spend some time exploring and finding people. You might find a career you didn't even know about, right? So yeah, it's there are some differences there. As a recruiter, obviously I can give tips on how to recruit, but as a candidate, dude, you've got to make yourself visible. You've got to make connections. You've got to network. And you've got to make sure that you're going to the places that you're going to get some activity from. Because I'll go back to the other example, right? I mean, you're wanting to buy some milk. Why would I go to GameStop in the mall to buy milk? I wouldn't. They don't even sell it there, right? So don't go there. Go to the places where you're going to get some activity and make a connection. But at the end of the day, if GameStop's the only one, walk in and tell them you're looking for milk, and maybe they know the person that delivers it, right? It's you gotta be there, man. You gotta sell yourself. So, yeah.
Well, fantastic. You hit on a lot of great points. I would go through like the questions, but I do have one.
Yeah.
What are some things you would like to close out with for today's session?
I think the things I can close out with is Indiana is a great state. Number one, there's a lot of jobs here, man. I work for Crane. Crane is the third largest Navy base in the world. If people aren't aware of it, they're watching this show. I'm telling you, there's a lot of places around Indiana that people don't know about. That place was kind of secret for decades, and for good reason. During the Cold War, they really didn't want anybody to even know it was there, right? And now it's much more visible. There's a lot of internet activity and stuff on it. But here's the bottom line. Third largest Navy base in the world. I used to work for the Naval Surface Warfare Center there at Crane. That was about 3,800 federal civilian employees and about 1,600 contractors, literally working on every secret gadget you've ever seen the Navy SEALs use, from their pistols and rifles and machine guns and sniper weapons and optics to, other things I can't talk about and probably don't even know about, right? Spectrum warfare, they're dealing with radar systems and jamming systems and listing devices, all kinds of things, with flares, up to the strategic side where they're dealing with the Trident sub-launch missile and submarine warfare and those types of things, radar systems. So a ton of stuff going on there, okay? And on the Army side, it's conventional munitions. We supply the Army and all the joint forces with conventional munitions. Not only do we produce them, we demilitarize the ones that are out of date, those types of things, renew them, we create new munitions, to everything from pistol rounds and rifle rounds, machine gun, up to artillery rounds and naval systems rounds. And again, that base has been there since the 1940s. As a matter of fact, I think they opened. I want to say it was 5 days before Pearl Harbor. As a matter of fact, and if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'll tell you, I'm the only guy that looks like this. People say I look a lot like Colonel Sanders, and I use that as a joke, right? It's like, yeah, just remember the guy that looks like the Colonel. And I'm on LinkedIn. My name, you can't mistake it because it's misspelled. Not here, but literally, my parents put an extra R in that word. Therron with one R is the Greek word for hunter. Therron with two R's is the Indiana word for we didn't watch the movie credits when we named our kid. So I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn and places like that. So, and I tell you, I will do everything in my power to try to help a veteran get a job in Indiana and to keep them here because I see great value in it. I feel blessed to have had this career in Indiana. I feel blessed to be working for the federal government. And I'll tell you right now, the federal government is fantastic. If you're a professional degree holder, you're out there and you're a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, or if you're a combat engineer or a truck driver, idiot Mike, or whatever it might be, there's potentially a place for you here, at Crane, if not around Indiana. And because of the way it works, we have a ton of supporting contractors and this ecosystem outside of Crane that supports all of our activities. So I would encourage people to not only contact myself to talk to us or go through InVets, and Chaz or one of the others will get you in touch with me. But also, if you have something to write with, I'll throw this out there. Do a Google search for Westgate Crane Careers. And that's west like the direction, gate like the thing that lets you go through the fence, right? And crane like the bird that stands in the water or the thing. Westgate Crane Careers. There's a site there that has a ton of icons on it. You can apply and go to the HR site for I don't know what it is. It's like 60 some contractors, I think. You can click on those icons. It'll take you straight to that person. If you're a veteran, reach out to me because I have a way to get a person who works kind of under InVets with one of the contractors out there. And her sole purpose on the planet is to try to get people jobs, specifically veterans. So if I can't do it, I've got 8 other ways to try to share your resume, and I'd be happy to do that for you.
Actually, Therron, I was actually looking. I was going to share on that Westgate website.
Yeah.
I think. Here, let's take a look at it. Let's see if it pops up.
Right.
Here it is. Share. Yeah, it shows all of the different.
That's
positions.
it. Right there. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Careers right there. And if you click on those, you see all the different contractors and stuff. And again, here's the bottom line. There's a lot of bureaucracy in the government, right? I cannot get in a resume from a veteran and share it directly with any of those contractors because all of those contractors support us and it wouldn't be fair to them. So I don't do that, but I can introduce you to the individual who works under InVets and under this umbrella of trying to bring veterans in. And, she will do everything in her power to help you get a job out there. You'll notice that a lot of those jobs are, engineer jobs and things like that, just like we have on the federal government side. I'll tell you the biggest difference, honestly, Chaz, between the Army and the Navy there is that we in the Army have a lot more blue collar type jobs, right? We do ammunition handling and fork truck driving and traffic specialists and truck drivers and things like that because there's all this munitions going on. We have a train, we have locomotives. You got if you're a military train operator, man, I'd love to talk to you because we've got that going on. Navy on the other side is almost all engineers. It's like 70% engineers and scientists because we're developing all these new things. Mm-hmm. They hire those contractors to solder them together. You would not expect a PhD electrical engineer who's worked there for 30 years and inventing things or a physicist to spend time at a bench testing and probing, right? So they hire a lot of contractors to do that type of work out there. So if you're communications, electronics, those types of things, those contractors may very well be interested in it, even if it's not listed there. So find the names, go dig in. We're talking about networking, right? Trying to sell yourself. Man, find out what those places do. Regardless of which one it is, they probably have other jobs that aren't even listed there that they may be interested in talking to you about. So, go for it. Use InVets, use everything in your power. And I would also add, lastly here, Chaz, and I will run low on time, is this. man, use your education benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot tell you how many brilliant young veterans we've got come in that our managers were just lusting after getting them aboard, and then they look and they have a high school education. And I could talk for the next 3 hours about why that is, but go get that degree, specifically electrical engineering, computer engineering, that type of thing. If you've got that communications background, weapons systems background, those type of things, combine that with that degree, man, you talk about a great job and great benefits. So use that to your benefit. Use the benefits that you have and don't let them go to waste.
So true, so true. And I think now, since it's what GI Bill is not, there's no delimiting date. Definitely important to use those, since
Oh yeah,
they're there for a lifetime.
absolutely, man, absolutely.
They're there for a
Yeah.
lifetime.
So
Well,
I'm sure.
there.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm sure you've talked about all the other benefits, but yeah, get a hold of Chaz, any of us, man. Look up Indiana. We are very veteran friendly. Tax abatements for houses. There's all kinds of things here that are going to help you out as a veteran. So it's a great place to call home. Go ahead, Chaz. Sorry to interrupt.
Agree. And the other thing I was going to say, actually, was why Indiana?
Why Indiana? It's funny you say that, man. I grew up here, so it's hard for me to go, well, because, it's a great state. I really do, man. I've traveled all over the country, and I really love Indiana. I do, man. I went to Fort Worth, Texas, the week I started with Army, and one of the greatest comments I've heard in a long time at a job fair was a young kid down there getting an electrical engineering degree, and I said, do you want to stay in Texas? He goes, no, man. He goes, I want to experience four seasons, you know. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. You mean you? Yeah, it's like, no, I've never seen snow, man, ever. So I was like, well, I said, you get that in Indiana, right? And you do. And we got like a foot of snow outside right now. You know what I mean? Like and that hasn't happened. I've owned a snowblower for 5 years now. It's the first time I've used it because of that. Everything else is going to, shovel it off and ready to go. So the winters aren't bad. The summers are beautiful. The springs are great. The falls are great. If you're into outdoor stuff, man, there's lakes all over Indiana. There's all kinds of hunting to do and parks and everything, right? And you could say that about any state, probably. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, Indiana is very veteran friendly. Indiana is just a great place to live, man. There's a lot of affordable housing around here. There's a lot of great jobs. The defense industry here, when you get out, one of the biggest fears I had was just going into a place where I was like, I didn't know the language or anything, right? And there's a lot of places here that work in the defense industry where it's very comfortable. And I speak to veterans and say, listen, dude, you can't go in and there we go, knife hand people, right? Hey, listen here. There's none of that. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of jobs there that are going to feel so comfortable, and so familiar to you. So there is an adjustment when you come out of the military, working as a civilian. But at the end of the day, if it's somewhat remotely familiar to you, it's a lot easier transition, right?
Yeah, I agree. I would say one of the things I really enjoy about our great Hoosier state are the festivals.
Oh man, yeah, right. Yeah. There's there's all kinds of festivals, man. There's not a weekend goes by here that you can't go out and experience something that you've probably not seen before in your life, man. We got some exotic stuff around here. I know persimmons grow everywhere, but the persimmon festival, there's the apple butter festival, and all these things, man. There's a 25-minute drive from here. There's a castle, literally a castle over towards Spencer, Indiana, and they have like a Renaissance fair there, right? All these people dress up and they have horses and jousting and all this, stuff, and you can rent that place to get married in. It's just crazy,
Yeah, I just heard something. They're gonna have a watermelon festival.
Uh-huh.
I think in French Lick.
Yeah.
So
There's pumpkin patches, man. If you go down south, down around French Lick and over on sort of the eastern side of the state down there, and I've lived here all my life. I drove by there about 6 years ago, man. I was like, what's those fields? As far as you could see, man, it looked like basketballs, right? I was like, oh, those are pumpkins. Yeah. And lots of good wineries, man. There's just all kinds of stuff to do here. So yeah, I know everybody cheerleads for their own state, right? They really do. But man, Indiana is a great place to live, and I would encourage anybody to check it out. It really is a truly a comfortable living here.
some great words indeed. Some great words indeed. Now, I'm going to tell you, I want to thank you for your continued service to our community, to our state, and more so than anything, thank you for your service to our country, because we know that freedom isn't free. And we understand that, in this line of work, what we do, it's important that we're here for each other. So, Therron, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I sure appreciate it, man.
And I'll see you at the next soiree for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And put any link you want to on this thing, Chaz. I'd love to talk to people. I love getting resumes. If I can't help you, sorry, man, but there's a good chance that I'm going to be able to at least steer you somewhere or help you, somehow get that traction you need to get the job, just like the folks at InVets have been doing such a great job of since their inception. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care. God bless.
Well, there you have it. Therron Thomas, great guy to know, recruiter for Crane, Army guy, Army veteran, and a fellow Hoosier. What can I say? You come to Indiana, or you're from Indiana, it's always a great place to be. And that being said, we have concluded this session of the Patrick Connection. Feel free to drop comments down on today's broadcast, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. I'm sure myself and Therron will be able to give you some clarification on some things. So until next time, be well, be safe, and have fun. Take care.
A thriving job market and low cost of living, plus a wide range of veteran benefits, make Indiana the perfect place for veterans of the United States military to call home. InVets can help you find that home. We're an organization started by veterans to help former service members transition to civilian life in our state. InVets can help you find the community with the career opportunities, housing, schools, and amenities that fit your lifestyle. To learn more about InVets, visit us at invets.org today.